Hello everybody, thanks so much for following my travel blog. We appreciate everybody who subscribed. Now many of you have been asking me to make Paraguay videos. We've been following several of them, such as the advantages and disadvantages of living in Paraguay, the pros and cons and so on. So here is one more video. Is this really worth it for you? Does Paraguay make sense for you? Well, okay, depends on what you're looking for. First of all, it's really affordable. That's a huge plus. Second of all, well, it's easy to immigrate to Paraguay. The immigration policy is easy, and even if you do overstay, you will pay a fine and you'll be allowed back in. The chances of being deported are extremely low. More and more people are coming in, but for the time being, it's really easy to become a legal resident here, or at least be here as an extended tourist. So these are the obvious advantages of being here. Now, is Paraguay the right culture fit for you? That's a more complicated question. See, I think that Paraguay is actually more or less a decent fit for me. At least it's better for me than Brazil used to be. I spent 2.5 years living in Brazil, and I didn't like it much because Brazil is very appealing to an extrovert. You know, somebody who likes noise, vibrant social life, loud conversations where people interrupt one another, carnival, party, you know, where you're going to have lots and lots of superficial acquaintances, but not a whole lot by way of meaningful connections. So Brazil is great in that sense. Now Paraguay is the opposite. Paraguay is much calmer, much more respectful, much more distant. You know, you could see that the way people relate to you is much more formal, and this is a consequence of the Spanish legacy. In Spain, the Spanish Empire had a much firmer hand and a much more hierarchical way of running institutions. Now, the Portuguese in Brazil did not have as firm of a hand. So Brazil is a little bit more chaotic in the way that people relate to one another, more informal, and more colorful. Though there is an obvious drawback to living in Paraguay as well. Now, one obvious drawback is that Paraguay is a landlocked country, and as a rule, landlocked countries tend to be a little bit less cosmopolitan, a little bit more closed off from the world. So Paraguayans tend not to be as familiar with foreign cultures from Northern Europe, or Europe in general, or North America. They don't have much experience with it. So you're going to have a little bit of a difficult time relating to local people. It's not that they have bad intentions, it's just that they don't have much experience dealing with foreigners. But nonetheless, you know, the expat community in Paraguay is growing substantially. It's growing quite a bit. You know, you're going to find people, you're going to find somebody with whom you have common ground. Though, there is also an advantage to mention. Despite that the local people don't have much common ground with foreigners, who don't have much experience with them, there is an advantage. The advantage is obvious. The advantage is that they don't have much against foreigners either. You know, for example, Mexico had a war with the United States, and they have a problem in history with the United States. Now, Paraguay never had any such issues with the United States or any European country. They did have a war with their neighbor in South America, the War of the Triple Alliance: Argentina, Uruguay, and Brazil. But there is no bad blood between Paraguay and the United States, Canada, or any European country. So that's an advantage. Now, there's also yet another disadvantage. That if you come live in Paraguay, you're going to have to be fluent in Spanish to relate to locals. See, if you live in a country like Uruguay and Argentina, the English language will get you far enough. Yeah, in Paraguay, you really need to know your Spanish. When I first came to Paraguay, I had already lived in Spain for 1.5 years and in Mexico for close to a year. And my Spanish was at a solid intermediate level, so that was fine for me. But, you know, if you don't speak any Spanish, that's going to be a challenge. You will be dependent on the very few Paraguayans who speak English and the expat community to help you get around. So keep that disadvantage in mind. Now, another obvious disadvantage is that the infrastructure is weak. It's not great. In a lot of cases, roads are in total disarray. buildings are dilapidated, there was a lot of traffic everywhere. There was only one major interstate highway, Highway 2, that takes you from Asuncion to Ciudad del Este, from the western border of the country with Argentina to the eastern border with Brazil. But other than that, the roads were terrible. So let me sum it up for you. Is Paraguay theoretically a great destination for you? Yes, but it should not be your first country. Paraguay worked out for me very well because I already had experience living in Latin America. I lived in Mexico, Spain, where I deepened my knowledge of Spanish. I lived in Brazil for almost 2 years and a half, almost 3 years. And I already got used to the Latin American or the Latino way of life. Now, believe it or not, Spain is a European country, but by living there, you can learn a lot about the Latin American cultures. There was a lot of obvious cultural overlap between Spain and Latin American countries. So if you know the language, if you're used to the Latin American way of life, you can navigate the culture. You know, the Paraguayan culture will be a challenge to navigate. It's gonna work out well for you. But if this is your first country and you don't know the language, I would recommend that you start in a place that's a little bit more expat friendly, in a place that's a little bit more commonly visited, like say Costa Rica or even Panama. So there is a lot more to be said on that. If you're interested in having a more detailed conversation, feel free to book a free consultation. That's right, half an hour free. Look for the link in the video description and we'll talk. Thanks so much.